30 years ago, Spike Lee shocked American audiences with Do the Right Thing, a clip of which we just saw just now. In that film, we saw Radio Raheem get choked out in a situation that is painfully reminiscent, almost identical to situations like George Floyd and Eric Garner. Of the percentage of people who were shocked by that film, the overwhelming majority of them were not from communities of color, because this was no secret to us. This had been going on for decades, thus the term art imitated life, which is what he did in writing that film. Today, in present tense, with situations like Eric Garner, George Floyd, and most recent Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta, we're faced with another situation. One of the biggest underlying currents that is going through these riots, these protests, these controversies is Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter. People from our community are going to be more than vocal, saying that all lives have already mattered except Black lives. And All Lives Matter enthusiasts kind of feel that somehow or other we're putting Black lives ahead of others. Today's video, we're going to discuss the All Lives Matter and why that may be more relevant today than most people actually realize, and for reasons which permeate, of course, outside of communities of color. Let's get to it now. Welcome back, people. Thank you for tuning in. This is again your boy Lascel, the M.B.A, back with my bosses to discuss matters of social relevance for the boss community. Today's video will be discussing All Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter and why Today's video discusses Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter and why you may be a little bit shocked to realize which one may be more relevant. But before we get started, as always, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. If you are a first-time viewer, thank you so much for tuning in. Please feel free to share. Make sure that this information is available to many others. We're not getting as much likes as we would like to have, and making this information more visible for YouTube. So please press that like button and make sure that you share this information with as many people as possible. Now, in today's video, we're discussing All Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter. Over the last week, we've seen a 27-year-old man, Rayshard Brooks, die at the hands of the police. Obviously, it's not as egregious as it was with George Floyd. Details are rolling in. We're having a lot of discussion about this. Obviously, people are going straight to, we're going to carry this on. This is another situation like George Floyd, another unarmed black man who was gunned down. We're going to see how that information rolls in. Obviously, with the situation, there was no reason for a man to die. You may disagree with me, that's fine. But the thing of it is this. What we're going to discuss today is something that most people don't want to talk about. See, I brought on the Spike Lee clip for a reason, to show people that George Floyd is not something relatively new. It didn't start with Eric Garner for people outside of our community. It didn't start with Tamir Rice and of course Mike Brown or even Trayvon Martin. It didn't begin with these things. This has been going on for decades upon decades upon decades, which is why communities of color are more than upset. Every time we hear people saying there's going to be an interview, we always do this because we know we're going to get jerked around on this one. But this is the thing. Is it a Black Lives Matter situation or All Lives Matter situation? I'm of the mindset that we might be leaning more toward All Lives Matter. Now, before everybody starts throwing stuff at the screen and telling me to shut up, I want you to look at something. There's a reason why I compiled this video. What we're seeing is not just a situation where black communities are being targeted. Now, this is the thing. Back in the 90s, all right, before video became a big thing in releasing police corruption and excessive force claims, What we had was we had a lot of people in the community rioting because we knew what happened, and the justice system would find ways not to penalize officers and to basically shift blame on the deceased, who usually was from the communities of color, and they would say that it was a matter of hearsay or he say versus she say, and they would say that, well, we have a trusted police officer who's going to do certain things, yada yada yada. But the whole inference was that if we had a video, we would not have to dispute anything, and that would say alleviate all of this, and we could go directly to justice. Now, this is what led up to, in 1991, the Rodney King verdict. Because what we saw in Rodney King was video evidence of police excessive force against people of color in the takedown of this individual. This is what prompted the 92 riots in LA and across the country.
I don't think when a man is being criminally treated, that some criminal has the right to tell that man what tactics to use to get the criminal off his back. When a criminal starts misusing me, I am going to use whatever is necessary to get that criminal off my back. And the injustice that has been inflicted upon Negroes in this country by Uncle Sam is criminal. Don't blame a cracker in Georgia for your injustices. The government is responsible for the injustices. The government can bring these injustices to halt.
Because finally we had video to prove our claims, and they still turned a deaf ear on it. But this is the thing. I point out to other communities who were not being targeted as badly as African Americans.
Give us your other hand behind your other hand behind you. Behind your back. We ain't trying to hurt you. Put your hands behind you. Hey, put your hands behind you. Relax. Come on, man. There we go. He's secured. Would it be nice if it be somebody that witnessed him actually running into traffic that would take out those people? No, he's still a walker. Because I mean, he just said to me, "I'm going to kill myself," but he gave me no like. That's all you needed to hear. I can go. He's got a problem. See it? Or you're going to be with him at the hospital, so you can't take him. Go take him out. Alright. Oh man, you okay? You still with us? Hey, you good, man?
Cops in Moore, Oklahoma beat a man to death even though he did absolutely nothing wrong. Now, a family of three were walking out of a movie theater. Now, it was a husband, wife, and their 19-year-old daughter.
Luis, please.
Calm down, sir.
Luis, are you okay?
He's fine.
Is he bleeding?
I'm bleeding. Alright, that's me. But I've got medical here, so you come check him out, make sure he's okay.
Papa!
Here, I need you to get this. I'm not gonna go through your stuff. Get your ID out for me, okay? What I want you to do, let's move right here. I want you to have a seat. Right on the floor, okay?
I'm recording.
That's fine. You record from over here, okay?
Papa! Is he okay? He doesn't move!
They got it. They're gonna take care of him.
He doesn't move! You kill him! You kill him!
Let's get medical attention right now. Just
People keep dying in prisons and facilities that are supposed to be overseen by Sheriff David Clark in Milwaukee. The latest example included a woman who was imprisoned at the Milwaukee County Jail, and she apparently went into labor, and unfortunately, she alleges that the officers there did not give her the medical attention she needed, and she suffered severe consequences as a result.
In Milwaukee, we told you the story of Sheriff David Clark and how he's let 4 people die in his prisons this year. One woman gave birth, they let the baby die there. They never brought treatment until the baby was dead.
And let's start in Arizona, where a SWAT raid went wrong and left a 2-tour former Marine dead. You see, SWAT teams had targeted a series of houses and an ongoing drug investigation. And when they got to the house of the former Marine, Jose Garena, he had already been alerted by his wife that someone was outside. So he grabbed his rifle. But before Garena could remove the safety from his rifle, he was greeted by more than 60 bullets from law enforcement. And sadly, the incident gets even worse. Turns out that as the wife was trying to help her dying husband, The SWAT team refused to let anyone attend to Garena.
This Friday, police officer Milton Green was shot by a fellow officer.
He was shot by a fellow officer.
Green drew his service weapon, identified himself as police, and told the suspect to drop his gun. The suspect ran. Uniformed officers arrived and ordered Green to drop his gun and get on the ground. Green complied, identified himself as an officer, and showed his badge. The lawsuit says a detective allowed Green to get up and told other officers Green was police. The suit alleges Green was giving the detective a description of the suspect when Officer Christopher Tanner arrived on the scene, shouted, "Drop your weapon," while simultaneously shooting Green in the arm. Green's family witnessed the incident.
Beaten and wrestled to the ground by a police officer, Ronald Jones then spent the next 15 months in jail.
Dash camera video from inside a Dallas police car. Police are looking for two white men fighting in downtown Dallas when then Dallas police officer Matthew Antkowiak sees Ronald Jones, who is African American, crossing Reunion Boulevard.
Mr. Jones is just walking down the street. Doesn't fit the description at all.
In police documents, the officer claimed Jones was throwing beer cans, so he pulled him over to arrest him.
From there, he pulls one of Mr. Jones' arms up very aggressively. Mr. Jones turns around to see what's going on. Why is he being placed under arrest? And from there it goes.
The video shows the officer taking Jones to the ground, hitting him a few times. The two struggle. More officers arrive. Here's another angle from a different police car. You see multiple officers on top of Jones, and one officer kicks him several times. Jones's attorney says the 62-year-old man was crying for help.
Is your driver's license? You're being stopped for speeding.
What happened is caught on his patrol car video, obtained exclusively by the K-View Defenders and the Austin American-Statesman. Officer Richter says in this report that he asked King to close her car door should she try to run away.
All right, take a seat back in your car so we close the door. Put your feet back in the car so I can close the door.
When she didn't immediately comply, he attempts to forcibly remove her, and things escalate fast.
No, why are you touching me? Oh my God!
As their confrontation plays out, King is taken to the ground a second time. In his report, Officer Richter says he acted so quickly because King reached to the passenger side of the car. He says he didn't know if she had a weapon. He also said King showed what he called a, quote, uncooperative attitude and resisted by clutching her steering wheel. Action and Officer Spradlin's comments. The chief says he found those particularly offensive.
I can tell you that
what the officer says was the second assault.
Can't push him out of the way.
The girl tries to move past the principal to open the door. Then, Officer Christensen loses his patience.
Okay, I've had enough of this. Take your bag off. Take your bag off. You're done. You're done. You're done. You're not going to assault the principal.
The officer's lapel camera is knocked to the ground, but a school employee repositions it, capturing what happens next.
Put your arms behind your back. Put your arms behind your back. Ow! My arm. Get off me. Ow! Yes. Your arm.
Yes, I actually had it stuck.
Turn over. Turn over.
Yes.
Do not resist. Do not resist. Stop resisting. Stop resisting.
Please stop.
Stop resisting.
Just stop, man.
Stop resisting. Stop. Put your arms behind your back.
Let's let her stand up.
A school administrator continues telling the officer to allow the girl to get up.
Officer Christensen, she is not a threat to yourself or others at this moment. You should allow her to stand, sir.
In the report, the officer writes, quote, she was very strong, stronger than I was. Again, a school employee tells the officer this has gone too far.
Sir, we're not going to use excessive force against your son.
We're not excessive.
She's an 11-year-old girl, and it's a shock to the system to see that this is a thing that it can occur at a school.
The thing of it is this. Since that happened, because you turned a deaf ear and didn't join our struggle then, law enforcement who used to be very adamant about behaving this way in communities of color, people of lower means, the ghetto as it were, as they evolved, they stopped caring about who they started doing this stuff to. So over the last 20, 30 years, let's look at how they treated communities that were not the communities of color. Let's take a look at how they're doing them now.
We first told you the story of Charles Eimers back in May when a cell phone video of the incident seemed to contradict police accounts. As in other cases involving allegations of excessive force by police, a grand jury called to look into Eimers' death chose not to indict the officers. Well, now a new video is raising questions about what that grand jury did not see.
A week later, but in May, CBS News obtained this video. In it, Eimers does not collapse. He surrenders and is surrounded by police. His son Trevor believes the family was lied to, and worse.
I believe that my father was asphyxiated on the beach in Key West by the officers involved that day.
Long after taking that sworn testimony, Eimers' attorneys discovered a new video with this close-up of Eimers after he lost consciousness, covered in sand and bleeding from his right ear.
See, there are two recordings that I'm going to show you. They show the shooting from different angles. Both of these videos come from dash cameras mounted into patrol cars. The videos show police demanding 3 unarmed men mistakenly suspected of stealing a bicycle to put their hands up when Ricardo Diaz-Zeferino reached for his hat and then drops his hands to his side. 2 officers opened fire. He died from the bullet wounds. One of his friends, who was also shot, did survive.
A 75-year-old man pushed back by police on Thursday. Martin Gugino's head hitting the ground so hard, stopping some officers in their tracks.
You're gonna kill me! You're gonna kill me! Hey, Tony. I'm trying to help you out, man. Just relax.
Now the question on everyone's mind, how did this happen? West 2 Stuart Moore live in Lake County this morning. So Stuart, break down for us what you know.
Well, Sion, deputies were on the lookout for Jonathan Brown. They spotted him and followed him to this complex. They thought that they were hot on his trails, but instead they knocked on the wrong door at 1:30 a.m. Lake County Sheriff deputies admit they knocked on the wrong man's door around 1:30 a.m. Sunday night. They didn't say they were law enforcement, then killed 26-year-old Andrew Lee Scott when he opened the door with a gun in his hand.
When we knocked on the door opened, and the occupant of that apartment was pointing a gun at the deputies. And that's when we opened fire and killed him.
Claims that she wasn't part of the fight, that she was just simply in her car when the fight broke and she wanted to get the hell out of there. But then cops arrived and then they started questioning her. Now, one of the cops asked her for her ID and she refused to give it to them. Now, we have video of the incident. Take a look.
This one right here is a jailhouse lawyer refusing the ID.
I will, no problem. I will give my ID if I'm being charged with something. Then I don't have to show you my ID, sir.
You're involved in an investigation. You want to interfere with the investigation? You're going to jail for interfering with a police officer in performance of an investigation. Do you understand that?
Sir,
Do you understand that? Yes or no?
I plead the fifth.
You plead the fifth? Let me have your ID.
Sarge, can I go on?
No.
I'm going to take a step back because I'm feeling threatened. You are an armed civilian, sir.
Lisa, please.
No, you can't do this. This is illegal.
Lisa.
Hey, look, she didn't
Lay off, father.
Footage of this police shooting shows Daniel Shaver's last moments. Police were responding to reports of a man pointing a rifle out of a hotel room window.
Hand up in the air! You do that again, we're shooting you. Do you understand? Please do not shoot me.
Begging for his life.
Then listen to my instructions. Don't talk, listen! Hands straight up in the air. Do not put your hands down for any reason. You think you're going to fall, you better fall on your face. Your hands go back in the small of your back or down. We are going to shoot you. Do you understand me? Yes, sir.
An officer officer then orders Shaver to crawl toward him. Shaver complies, but then moves his right hand behind him despite the warning.
Fairfax, Virginia police. That's him in the white t-shirt. This picture is from a neighbor's cell phone, taken just minutes before John Gear is shot dead. Seeing Officer Adam Torres on the front lawn. In this photo, you see his weapons raised, pointing directly at John Gear.
It used to be a time that they would only do this in the ghetto, in the hood, in black communities, Latin communities, people who were of lower means, working class at best. Now they're taking it to all communities. What happened for those who were not from communities of color is you allowed, by not joining with us before, a guard dog mentality that law enforcement, who used to target specifically areas of color, now grew into their own importance, and they don't tolerate nothing from anybody. They don't care what color you are now. They will walk in there, they will smother you, they will shoot you, they will kill you, and they will cover their own. We have understood for many years what the blue wall meant, and we're never seeing it so prevalent as we're seeing it today. So for those of you who are outside of these targeted communities, no longer just communities of color, but also lower middle class to maybe even upper middle class communities that are not of color, you don't understand why everybody's starting to link up. Why you're seeing more and more white faces in Black Lives Matter rallies. Where you're seeing more and more white faces in protests against excessive force. Because it's not just being limited. We're not the only ones being targeted. While we are the ones who are targeted by far the most, let's never mistake that, white communities and other communities that are not of color are not exempt from it. And here's the thing, if we do not make these changes, what's going to happen is it's only going to get worse. So what are the changes that we need to make? I've made several videos on it, but I'm going to cover it again with a few extra added bonuses for you that stuck around. Let's take a look. Now, I'm going to cover three things, and I'm going to do it in the order 3, 2, 1, so that you do stay tuned to the end. Please feel free to comment. I'm looking forward to you guys commenting and sharing. Let's have a discussion on this. Let's talk about it. I know a lot of people nowadays, especially these younger generations, don't like to think. You need to think or you will be a victim. Let's have a discussion about this. Let's start off with number 3. Number 3 is one that I've championed many times in my videos and in my personal life. Grand jury reform. Until we change the way that the grand juries are able to be manipulated to allow these people out of these trouble spots, or to make it seem like their body cams weren't on, or we have a district attorney that phrases the situation, changes the narrative, we're never going to get nothing done. We allow these people to get out of the communities. No changing of venue. We should have a balanced presentation from a defense and from the DA's office. We need community advocates and victim advocates at those grand jury hearings. These are things that we need. Secondly, most importantly, we have to make sure that everything is brought out as expeditiously as possible. There's a lot of grand jury hearings where they'll hide the disciplinary records of these officers. We're going to need those things to change. And that's what we should be doing when we're protesting. Not just marching around, talking about the depth of people. And it's incredible to see that kind of unity, more so multiculturally than we've ever seen it before. But we need to have a point for it. Grand jury reform is a great place to start. But as someone explained to me, a lawyer friend of mine from a different state, and I knew this, but it never really dawned on me in this specific genre. All states don't require grand jury. So that's why we're going to get to number 2. the excessive force statutes. We need federal excessive force statutes to change. What people don't understand, this may get a little technical for you, is that the excessive force statute doesn't always say that if you kill somebody or your actions lead to the death of somebody, that you will be prosecuted. They'll say that, listen, all right, so let me put it to you in ways you can understand. How many times have we seen that person has been abused or shot, even killed, because he was resisting arrest and there was no other crime for it? They came and asked him a question and they said that he weren't free to leave, and he said, well, shit, I'm free to leave. And they started tussling and they wound up hurting this dude. And he never committed a crime. The way the laws are situated in many states, them just saying that you can't leave exonerates them from any action they take if you try to leave or they feel that you are resisting arrest. All right, there's a lot of different things that has to be changed and that has to be streamlined for the 50 states on a federal level. And then when you add to it the monetization of the police force, think about it. How many times have you seen where there's evidence of monetization? It's not the point of a police force to enforce the laws. This is not the case. Think about it. If that was the case, right? When crime is down, when violations are down, then it would be a good day for the police force, right? Wrong. In any city, pick one, any state, if arrests are down, they write new laws. If there's no tickets, they complain about it and enforce quotas. This is the monetization of the police in our time. Until we get rid of these other underlying purposes for the police force, we're never going to see exactly what justice looks like in our communities, white, black, or whatever. The time is now to change the purpose and to redefine how the police interact with us and just generally what they're here to do. And these are things we can ask and we can change by our vote, which is why I keep harping on the vote. The vote is very important. We need to bring in people who are sympathetic to our needs. Understand something, politicians are very biased. They take on the attributes of whatever constituency they serve, which is why you will sit back and people say, oh, politicians, they don't make no sense. No, they are the voice for the people who are paying them. We need a voice for us that we support and that we pay and that we can hold accountable. Which leads me to my third point. We need a community review board system that bites. What people don't understand is that they see the mayor, they see people in many different capacities who are high above these offices and even the chief of police in a certain realm that only suggest that these officers be removed or these officers are charged. You would think that these people have the power to do that. That's not true. The bottom line is this, is that there's a whole different slew of things that go on which can stop those public advocates from actually taking action against corrupt cops. You have unions who dictate certain things that mitigate penalties for certain individuals. There's layers and buffering of legalese that actually stops direct input from public officials in certain things. We need to lobby for change because this is the thing. Everybody hears about civilian review boards and review boards in different incarnations and many different names. None of them have any disciplinary power over these bodies. They get paid $120,000, $130,000 a year of your taxpayer dollars in some situations. And all they can do is make a suggestion. They can make a request. They can have an opinion. They don't have any bite. At the end of the day, we need to change that. Civilian review boards, if a person gets killed in District 27, District 52, whatever state, whatever country, whatever county, whatever it is, fill in the blank, they should be able to, their professional recommendation should be a lot further than just, hey, it's a piece of paper and it goes in this folder. Until that happens, what's the point of taking our tax dollars and giving it to these people? All I ask you guys to do is, I understand you're upset. I understand a lot of people like to use their phones for Facebook, Snapchat, the Gram, and doing Amazon. Take some of your time. Research these things. When you start researching these things, you start seeing how powerful these things can possibly be in the right hands, and how inefficient and incompetent the way they've made it as it currently in this current incarnation. They're basically blowing smoke up our asses. They tell you, oh, we're going to appoint a body, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and we have a whole new review board. If they can't do anything, why are we paying the money? Because never mistake, that money that they take out of your check, part of that goes to them. And that could be sent back to us. That could be given to us for outreach programs, better schools, better policing, better anything. It could be another stimulus check. It could be a rebate to us and our family and resources that we sorely need. But until that does happen, until we change it, it's never going to happen. So I encourage my people. I encourage all people. Get off the social media just for an hour. Just do some research on this. If you're really pissed off, if you're mad enough to march, you should be mad enough to make a change. That's all I say. That's all I'm saying to you. So that is my take on it today. Now, I'm leaning more toward, of course, Black Lives Matter, because we have been marginalized for so long. But I will tell you this, regardless of how you look at it, and it's not a racist thing, if we're not careful, in the next 5 to 10 years, all lives matter is going to be the only thing. Because at the end of the day, what it may come down to is all lives versus blue lives. That looks like the way we're going, ladies and gentlemen, especially if we don't get this idiot Trump out of office. Trust me on that one. Well, that's my show for the day. This is your boy Lascel, the M.B.A. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please be sure to like, share, comment. Let me know what's on your mind. Please like the video if it meant anything to you. We definitely need those likes to get more content like this up and get a lot of the needless content that is allowing us to be killed in the streets to be more prevalent than stuff like this, these kind of discussions. As always, important, if it's not about $1, ladies and gentlemen, it does not make sense, but we need to come together, because as I've shown you, the fine line between what they would and would not do is evaporating at a secondly rate. Every second, we're being shocked more and more. So just keep that in mind. As always, Black Lives Matter. We stand with George Floyd. Our prayers and our condolences go to the family of Rashard Brooks. Regardless of what the situation was, even if he was dead wrong, he didn't deserve to die because he fell asleep in a drive-thru. I'll see you guys again next week. Until next Monday, fresh content every Monday. Hopefully we can get back into the financial matters, but for the right now, with this political climate the way it is, we need to have more and more documents. We need to have more and more discussion about what we're going to do. Not just what happened, but what we're going to do. And that's one thing I try to keep giving you guys. Until next week, stay safe and try not to be the next victim.